Well, hello there. So what's up these days? The last video I posted was about starting the novel journey, which actually has already started. And as we go deeper, you'll find maybe has always been. But that's a little trippy, right? You might think, why am I watching this video? Well, that's a good question. And I've wondered about that as people come to my channel and what am I sharing? What's the value of this? I can tell you what the value of this was for me. It is part of a self-care project that might seem a little luxurious. I was looking for a way. Some say need is a weak word. It's a lack word. Others say that the most important thing is your energy. And I think that's true. Being mindful is also good. Anyway, I was looking for a way to get to know myself better. My experience had been that all through my life, I felt that I was told who to be and what to do, and I struggled with my inner rebellion, and my rebel nature would sometimes override that. But even then, it was still dictated by how I felt about who I was supposed to be and what I was supposed to do. And so you might see in one of my earlier videos this year where I talked about the realizing I needed to love myself and know who that self was, and also what love is. And I thought, okay, well, when you love somebody, first you got to meet them, right? And otherwise, how do you know who that object of your affection is? So I thought, well, when you first meet someone, you see them, right? Maybe in some rare circumstances you hear them on the phone, and that's the first time you kind of are introduced to them, but meeting them visually, right? So pardon my ums, it'll get better as we go. So I thought, well, how can I do that with myself? And immediately my smartphone came to mind, and I thought, like, I could use my smartphone to get to know myself and see how I respond to myself, and not just the smartphone, thinking, okay, I'm gonna take a picture of myself for others, or I'm gonna take a video for others, and definitely as we go into this and my own explorations with self-care, you'll see that it's very much connected to others. But what are we giving, and how are we giving when when we're giving to others? And I argue that, what a beautiful, handsome dog you have. Oh my gosh, that's a beautiful golden retriever just walked by. Anyway, so I thought, what can I do about that, and how can I do this on a consistent basis? Because, if you love someone, their interests are part of your interests, and that's why compromise is maybe not the greatest approach to a loving relationship, to put it mildly. It's compatibility, and to be compatible with someone, you got to know what's compatible with you. And so I started with selfies. I started to take selfies of myself whenever the thought occurred to me. I set an intention that I would get to know myself starting with selfies, because I was way in my head. I was so in my head, I couldn't hear my heartbeat. I couldn't feel my breath. Sometimes I wondered if I was slowly suffocating. Like I was in a very, very stressful period. So this visual connection with me was a way of bringing me out of really a deeply dissociative state as well. Now, dissociation, if you're not familiar with that, is just real quick. There's levels of dissociation, and dissociation can, is often like when we're doing something and then we're just like, oh, where was I? What was I doing? Maybe you drove somewhere and you're like, you don't remember driving there. You just, you were thinking about something else and you're just on autopilot. Or, maybe you're washing the dishes and you're thinking about something else. Like those are mild dissociative states. And I just want to interject here too that I am not a mental health professional, and I'm not coming to you as that. This is part of my personal exploration to be the author of my life, which is, the umbrella novel project. Beyond any writing that I've done, any novels that I've created, I realized, like, if I looked at my life right now from this moment as a novel, who am I? Like, what character am I? What am I doing? What do I need? What am I going after? Like, these are things that I found really important to ask myself. So I started with the selfies, and it was not about looking good. It was about getting to know me, all the me. Like if I felt like I should know myself at least as well as someone else does. And of course, anybody who knows me is going to know me through their lens. So it's going to be their perception. And yet, how am I going to maintain my own frame and bring what I'm meant to bring to the world and be part of the purpose of life if I don't even know who I am, who the self is? And I think that this is a really loaded topic because there's all the narcissism and at the pace that we're going at in society today, I don't know that we've all really taken the time to get to know, health in the deepest way. Like science is still learning about the bodies. We're still learning about the holistic nature of our being. And there's actually the NIH, the National Institute of Health, I believe that's what it stands for, is conducting more research. They're collecting grant requests starting in November, I believe, to go into basically holistic health, like the whole person. Oftentimes we think of ourselves in a kind of fragmented way. And I'm going to take a leap here and say that I was watching a video by Medical Intuitive recently, and she talks about how we are micro Earths. Like we are, there's a concept in Hermetic philosophy, which is as above, so below. It's the law of correspondence. And so as within, so without. And this is something that I've always felt was true about life. And I unsuccessfully, I never even really, I started to start a fitness project that I wanted to turn into a business called Fit In and Fit Out. Like you're fit inside and you're fit outside. Like there's that external and internal harmony. And that came from, my own reflections on how I was navigating life. Like physical movement was very important to me. I'm grateful to my dad for that. He had us doing a lot of exercise from an early age, a lot of swimming, a lot of jumping jacks, jump ropes, calisthenics, like all that stuff. And, carried on the community I grew up in, which was not a traditional community by any means, to put it mildly again. And so back to the selfies, I was like, okay, let me use the selfies in a different way. I'm going to take selfies whenever the need arises inside of me. So whenever I get the impulse, and I know a lot of people will be like, oh, you shouldn't follow your impulses. We'll do a deep dive on that later, because I've been to places in my life where I had to rely on instinct. Like that was my mind was completely overrun with super destructive thoughts, and I needed to follow my heart, really, follow my body, and see where that would take me. High stakes, yes. So the intention was to get to know myself. The method was selfies, and the frequency was whenever I felt like it, because I was so disconnected from my feelings that I was just like, I didn't know what was going on, and I felt very, very extremely depressed. I couldn't feel things. I was just like, I didn't know how to make decisions. I was, having a lot of negative input, and at the time, I didn't even see it as negative input. I just saw it as input. Like, we assign these labels to things, but it was really, really destroying the person I thought I was. And of course, destruction is part of creation. So it's all a cycle. Like, energy never dies, right? But I believe we have an opportunity in this life to create something, to be a part of the purpose of life, and to create something amazing with others. And so, that actually does require a development of self. And that was the thing that was coming up too in this medical intuitive video. Oh, I'm sorry, I completely glossed over it. So as within, so without. So if you think about the fact that there's outer space, then by that philosophy, then we have inner space. And then following that trail of thought, when they split the atom, all our atoms split as well. And it would be interesting to see how health changed around that time, for better and for worse. And for because it's always going to be, the polarities are always going to be there. And I just want to interject right now. I know this is not like the simplest of topics. We'll simplify things as we go. This is more of a vlog for me, and then for anyone else who's interested in following my journey on a deeper level. But once again, the polarities, some of this is going to be deep, some of this is going to be really simple and shallow, and then it's but then it's up to you, like what you see in it. So the selfies led to fast forwarding a few years, and then I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I continued to do the selfies, and then I thought, okay, let's take this a step further. Let me set up a YouTube channel, and let me also set up a blog, and just do the same thing, like just raw, whatever, whenever, and just set the intention to be as honest as possible, so that I could see the reflection, and so I could do it with other witnesses, and then I could change based on what I saw. And a lot of that change actually happens immediately. It's like when you see something and you're just like, I don't like that. That doesn't sit right with me. And then automatically you shift inside, right? So there's something very powerful in that reflection. And so this is that YouTube channel. I started off, the very first post, I believe, was about changing the story. So I'll link to that below, and you can see that. And then as I keep going, I'll talk about the other things I did, and it's stuff that we all do. I just put a different spin on it so that I could maintain some continuity with the rest of the world, although I didn't do a very good job of that, I think. I focus 100% on healing, and from that experience and doing my best to, get my living essentials, get out of the fight or flight survival mode, and fawning too. That's a big one that is not as commonly talked about as the other two. Freezing is another one too, and you can partially freeze. Like I had part of me would freeze, and then the other part would try to come in and fight, and it's just a lot of the term is dysregulation, and just trying to move through that. And trying is another weak word, they say. So, but making, setting an intention to move through that. I was moving through that. So, and then sometimes moving is not moving, right? Action, non-action is also action. It's a decision that you make to do something different. So, yeah, that's this channel. That's the recap. And when I committed to doing the novel and not making it a side thing, but putting it in the forefront, it wasn't, this is deep work for me. And a novel is a very complex thing for anyone to take on, and to do it the way I'm doing it, in the condition I'm doing it, with the person I am. All that to say, after I did the video, I was just kind of like, whoa, and I talked with a friend, a very dear friend of mine who's a publisher, and she said she couldn't think of anyone who had written a novel while they're healing, like, publicly. So this is kind of new, but I'm not sure. And if you know of someone who has done that, please let me know in the comments. And of course, anything else that you're thinking of that comes to mind, I would love to hear from you and have a conversation with you this way. So we're at the stage now where I started a YouTube channel after I got cancer, was diagnosed with cancer, and then I did as much as I could, which was not very much. I did most of my video and writing on Facebook and saved that for later, because while there were times where I was super angry, super out of it, I wanted to show my personal raw journey through cancer. I know that typically it's like the smiling faces, the smiling bald patients, and while it's really beautiful that we can get into a state of gratitude for life no matter how hard it is, I think part of healing is to confront those things that could be better. And we can't confront the things that could be better if we're not honest. And the best way I could find to be honest was just to follow my heart and to say what I felt was right for me, and then learn from that and be like, okay, well, I don't like that, or and why don't I like that? And just a lot of meditation. And the mind is capable of processing a lot of information quickly, but the heart is capable of processing even more information. And oftentimes, though, there's so much that our true heart intelligence is buried under, because we've neglected that aspect, and we've glorified the mind so much in life. And that's worked out very well for some people, maybe not as well for other people. But regardless, coming into what I've seen is a move towards greater harmony, and within and without, inside and outside, holistic harmony. And if you are familiar with the Taoist philosophy, that is about seeking harmony at all costs, which is also what the Art of War book is based on. It's about knowing the nature of things, knowing your nature, knowing the nature of others, and knowing the nature of nature, and when you see it all as one living organism, it really takes a lot of that judgment out of it, like, oh, this person's good, this person's bad, because they're affiliated with this political organization that makes them this kind of person, and because they're affiliated with that political organization, it makes them that kind of person, and this person, it does this because of this. And it's like, well, how is that always so? Like, so I thought, okay, this is going to be like a deep work for me, but I realized, like, in the deepest, darkest places, I was like, okay, I got to learn how to love myself. I have to learn to love who I am, even when I am deeply depressed, even when I don't know how I'm going to sit up, even, like all these things. I just got to love myself. And because in loving myself, like, we all need to be loved and seen. And in loving myself, not at the expense of others, but prioritizing my own care in a responsible way. I mean, if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to burn out. And when you're burned out, like, what is that going to look like? You're not your best, And so I thought, well, the deeply personal is the deeply universal. Like, we are all human beings, and even though our life experience is different, we all experience emotions, we all experience sensation, and we actually have access to even more than our five senses, and even more than what we've traditionally been taught. So part of my my gift that I want to share is the things I've learned, so that maybe they can help you on your journey, and then maybe you have things that you want to share that you think will benefit what I'm up to. And you'll see too that when I really switch my thinking around, it was like I freed up so much energy, and I started finding like all these pockets of energy that were trapped in these ways of being, and these things that I thought I had to do, and conditioning that I'd received from when I was young, from, you know, at different stages in my life, and it was all working together. But there was a center of that for me, and that was, you know, my experience. Like, I am a sentient human being, and as I learn, as I change, you know, my reality changes. And so that's what this is about. And going forward, I'm working on the novel, and the novel, so the energy that was freed up, and I let my mind just go ridiculous. I was like, okay, what I'm experiencing feels ridiculous. I can see the world around me probably thinks I'm ridiculous, and they have every right to think I'm ridiculous. But let me just go with that then. Instead of fighting it, let me just be ridiculous in my mind, and let my mind run with like, okay, how creative can you be, Miko? How creative can you be? Like, how, instead of fighting the destruction, instead be like, okay, what are we trying to make though? Because something is going to replace that. Something's going to replace the destruction. What are we going to make? And so when I started thinking like that, like, and then I'm thinking, okay, I'm part of the whole. I am an individual, but I also have capacity to influence others, as others have capacity to influence me. And so how can I bring the most value? How can I leave a beautiful legacy? Not just my own legacy, but how can I find others who also want to leave a beautiful legacy and leave a gift to generations to come from the resources that I have, which at the time conventionally didn't seem like a lot. Like, I didn't have a big fortune of money sitting in my bank account or in assets. I didn't have, you know, at the time I pretty much didn't really have connections, because you know, I think people had a certain perception of me, and I had just, you know, I got to a point where it's like, I just, you know, I think that I need to let go of all that for now, and allow something new to emerge. And lots of people have done that, like starting over. And you know, sometimes people come back into your life, sometimes they don't. But, you know, how can I help others in the future to not have to be so isolated, and or not feel so isolated, and feel like, you know, like, how can I contribute what I've learned in ways that are appealing, honest, maybe first honest, then appealing, and, you know, if we can work those together, that is, you know, the best. And so that's what I'm working on. I know not all of my posts and everything were like the most appealing. It's hard to watch somebody struggle and not know what to do, or how to help, or have the resources. And so going forward, you're gonna get little glimpses of what the ridiculous creation that I started building, that helped me really get through some very dark times too, because there was that creativity there. I couldn't do much at the time towards it, but it was always like it was incubating. And you know, sometimes big ideas take a long time to birth. So if you're having, you know, if you're gestating a big idea, you're pregnant with a big idea, like, it's okay, it's going to take time. One of my favorite quotes from Confucius says, it does not matter how slow you go, only that you do not stop. And sometimes it's like that. It's like you want to race ahead, but it's, you know, life is going to take you a certain way. And, you know, there's a the group of people who are like, make this happen, make that happen, you know, they're following their own art of effortless action because they have the drive. And at times there isn't that drive for all of us. And so then, you know, we make it worse by putting pressure on ourselves and feeling inadequate and things like that. And instead it's like, what can we do with what we have? So that's what this is about. And going forward, it's going to be more of that super holistic approach to life, storifying it. And hey, you know what? Maybe I'm completely off, and this is gonna evolve into something new, and that's fine too. I'm not attached to it being a certain way. At times, I have been attached to, you know, I felt like I was clinging to everything because I was just so afraid of moving forward and afraid of what that would look like and feel like and what I might do. And you know, fear, false evidence appearing real, or there's other breakdowns of that. Fear is an acronym. So I'm in this beautiful park today, and I am happy to be making this video. I went into a cocoon for a while. I was letting go of a lot of stuff, and sometimes I just could not speak, and I, you know, had to let it go. And so and some people, actually someone, I don't remember her name right now, mentioned that, I think it was in Iceland, they, you know, when you go through a difficult period, it's often the time after the difficult period that's almost the more difficult period, because you're just kind of like processing everything. In the time, in the, you know, in the fight, you've got the adrenaline, you've got all that go. And then afterwards, it's just like, whoa, like now you got to be a new person. Like I had to break up with the cancer survivor identity, which honestly to me felt like it was the most, I felt like I could be the most truthful, because you know, it felt like I joked that it was the most politically correct problem that I had, but I managed to find a way to make it politically incorrect. So the other things I'm working on, oh yeah, so besides breaking up with that identity and allowing a new identity to emerge, and seeing that there's the core self behind all of it, you know, it's the expressed self that we learn through the conditioning. And I think going through cancer, there was some conditioning, but I felt like my attitude was, I'm forging myself in the fire, so I'm doing as much as I can to set myself up for success, but I only know what I know. And you know, I have a pretty healthy diet for the most part, and I also just affirm that food is my friend. I metabolize everything properly, and the more I believe it, the more not only happens, but it also helps me to make the right choices. And the approach I have to also these drives and stuff is that instead of like, okay, I better stop that. And some people say like, you just need to stop. And I'm like, okay, look, I understand myself, and I understand my willpower, and I understand sometimes that willpower takes resources. And if I'm fighting myself that hard, what the best thing I can do is to shift my attitude towards what I'm doing first, and then work on my behavior. Because if I'm just trying to force myself and I haven't addressed the root cause of why I'm doing that, which sometimes is just as simple as seeing it. Like, okay, why do I feel like I need to have all these snacks? And like, you know, am I really depleted, or is my mind hungry? Am I, you know, like having a difficult time processing really hard emotions? And so then if I sit with that, and instead of like escaping and getting the relief from that, you know, from the food or whatever, then instead I'm just sitting with the emotion while I'm doing that. So then that kind of takes out the escapism part of it, where it's like, okay, so I'm not getting the full reward, and I'm allowing myself to be seen by myself. Like, okay, I'm doing that because I'm feeling this emotion, and wow, that's really hard for me. And then there's that compassion, and that's what I got to through selfies too, like compassion. Oh, look at that woman, because I couldn't even identify it as myself. Look at her, she looks really sad. I wonder what I can do to help her, you know. And then it's like, oh, okay, maybe I'm not that bad of a person if I want to help somebody. And you know, so all along the way, I kept learning more about myself, and observing. And the way I went about it, not everybody can do that. And that's why, for people who don't have the time, don't have the energy, don't have that direction, or even the knowledge, my background gives me a lot of information about the body and about performance, mental performance and physical performance. And so I was able to take all those things together and really focus on self-care in ways that I could do anywhere, anytime. And that way you can take whatever applies to you, because you are the master of your self. And self-development is part of the holistic process, because the more we understand ourselves as whole beings, the more we understand others as whole beings, and the less we need others to validate us, and the less we need others to approve of us as well. And it's like, okay, look, I get it. You don't like my style. You don't like who I am. You don't like, whatever. That's fine. Just go dislike it somewhere else. And unconditional love too doesn't mean unconditional tolerance. There've been people in my life where I'm like, look, I really love them. I see so many cool things about them, but the way they're behaving and interacting with me is really hurting me. And they are not able to understand that I am not about getting into a big fight, or I am not about this, I'm capable of it, sure, but that's not my way. And so it's look, I love you and I hope for the best for you, for sure. Not even hope, I send you healing energy, blessings energy, may all your dreams come true, but not with me. And that's because I know myself more, and I'm not willing to jeopardize my mental health or my physical health because I'm compromising just to appease other people. And that was something I had to learn too. And it was hard for me to face because I felt like, oh, I'm a coward now. And people are going to think I've just been pleasing them all the time. And well, I do like to explore. I'm pretty open-minded. So there's a lot of things that that I'm open to experiencing. And there comes a time when I'm you know what? So I learned something about myself, and I realized that some other people had realized this too, that I am typically the kind of person who will, oh, my timer's up. I gotta go meet my friend. Okay, well, I love you, and thank you if you watched all the way to the end. And it's, I get that this is not the most professional YouTube video. This is a vlog, and I hope that you have a wonderful time and that you stick around. And if you're like, wow, she's kind of weird, I'm interested in what's going to happen next, do subscribe and share your comments, and let's see how this unfolds. Much love.